And that issue of non-citizens voting is not a problem here in Arizona. The Attorney General has no record of that happening over the past 15 years. And one of the leading conservative groups that tracks voter fraud, the Heritage Foundation, has no record either. And given that, Fontes called the DOJ's threats insulting. He questioned if the department knows what it's actually doing. For over 20 years, Arizona has done what they are demanding. In 2004, voters approved a measure requiring proof of citizenship to vote in state and local elections. So threatening election workers now, Fontes said, is unprofessional and unacceptable.
These are good people, Democrats and Republicans alike across Arizona, who are being threatened by this. And again, the net impact is voters are going to keep asking questions where there should be none. They may doubt where there should be no doubt. And that's bad for America.
Fontes and his office still have a few days to respond to the DOJ. How they will do that is still being discussed. Fontes also questioned why the Civil Division sent that letter. He said if they're threatening criminal charges, it should have come from the Criminal Division. In the newsroom, Dennis Welch, Arizona's Family.
Thank you.